Before time began, there was the cube. We know not where it comes from, only that it holds the power to create worlds and fill them with life. That is how our race was born. For a time we lived in harmony, but like all great power, some wanted it for good, others for evil. And so began the war. A war that ravaged our planet until it was consumed by death. And the cube was lost to the far reaches of space. We scattered across the galaxy, hoping to find it and rebuild our home, searching every star, every world. And just when all hope seemed lost, message of a new discovery drew us to an unknown planet called Earth.
This is the construct. It's our loading program. We can load anything from clothing to equipment, weapons, training simulations, anything we need.
Right now, we're inside a computer program?
Is it really so hard to believe? Your clothes are different, the plugs in your arms and head are gone. Your hair has changed. Your appearance now is what we call residual self-image. It is the mental projection of your digital self. This is the world that you know. The world as it was at the end of the 20th century. It exists now only as part of a neural interactive simulation that we call the Matrix. You've been living in a dream world, Neo. This is the world as it exists today.
Welcome to the desert of the real.
We have only bits and pieces of information, but what we know for certain is that at some point in the early 21st century, all of mankind was united in celebration. We marveled at our own magnificence as we gave birth to AI.
AI? You mean artificial intelligence?
A singular consciousness that spawned an entire race of machines. We don't know who struck first, us or them, but we know that it was us that scorched the sky. At the time, they were dependent on solar power, and it was believed that they would be unable to survive without an energy source as abundant as the sun. What is the Matrix? Control. The Matrix is a computer-generated dream world, built to keep us under control in order to change a human being into this.
Quite so often we tell people to come out of Babylon. But not everyone knows what that phrase means. But if you were speaking to someone on the street, maybe you would tell them to come out of the Matrix. Then you could look at the Matrix like a box. A box that you've been in your entire life. A box that you've been bred into before you were even born. A box that has been around, apparently, since the beginning of the ages. And a box that we intend on exposing today. A cube, if you will, a black box. The same cube black boxes that are in every major city. Synonymous with multi-billionaire corporations and banking institutions. In our movies, our pop culture, today we're going to investigate the Brotherhood of Saturn and its connection with the black box. Now, to better understand this black box, we're first going to have to look at its association with Saturn. And before we dig into the planet Saturn, let's always consult the word about these heavenly bodies. In Psalm 19, King David writes, "The heavens declare the glory of Yah, and the firmament showeth his handiwork." Stop there. The heavens declare his glory. It does not declare your future in the zodiac. Yes, there is a story told in the heavens. Has it ever occurred to you that Adam, Noah, and several other people in the Bible did not have the Bible to read? Most of the men you read about before the flood did not have prophets to study. How would they have been able to know of things yet to come? The heavens. Everything from the dragon being casted out to his rise and his ultimate defeat from this begotten Son, who would reclaim all of earth and really all of the heavens. All that's been spelled out already within the heavens. This is how the Magi, taught by Daniel himself, would have been able to understand and ascertain the sign of the times to know when the Mashiach had been born. They consulted the heavens because the heavens declare the glory of Yah. And it says the firmament showeth his handiwork. Praise Yah. What a magnificent creator he is. Now in verse 2 it says, "Unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge." Most business calls, most phone calls, most chit-chat is done during the day. When the sun comes up, pretty much everything rises with it. And they say about 99% of life on earth rises or conducts activity in speech and communication in whatever form that may be during the daytime. And then at nighttime, it showeth knowledge. Why? Because at night is the best time to look at the stars. To stare and not to be in awe at the stars, but awe at who created them and the information one can ascertain about what's to come. In verse 3, "There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard." Do you understand that even after the Tower of Babel and we got our languages split up, there isn't a culture to this day who does not understand the universal language of the stars in the heavens? Regardless of what you call them, the dog stars, Ceres, Saturn, Neptune, whatever. Each culture understands these heavenly bodies and how they move. Verse 4, "Their line has gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them hath he set up a tabernacle for the sun, which is a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoiceth as a strong man runs to a race. His going forth is from the end of the heaven, and his circuit unto the ends of it, and there is nothing hid from the heat thereof." Do you understand that in verse 6, all of this leading up to there is talking about the sun and how it rises? But check that the sun is set on a circuit in its travel, which is completely against what they have taught you in school, that the earth is actually doing a circuit in a dance around the sun. Here we are told that the sun is set in a circuit-like motion, making a circle, and nothing is hid from its heat. Verse 7 says, "The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple." Hallelujah.
The best example of space shuttle fakery is the Challenger disaster. In 1986, the shuttle Challenger exploded about 74 seconds after takeoff, killing all 7 astronauts inside. Or did it? It turns out that 6 of the 7 are still alive and kicking today. Ellison Onizuka claims to be his identical twin brother Claude. Yeah, I've got an identical twin brother Claude too. The Challenger pilot, Mickey Smith, hasn't even bothered changing his name. He's now Professor Michael J. Smith of University of Wisconsin. Now, Krista McAuliffe was a bit of a sneaky one. She was the Challenger payload specialist, quite famous for being a teacher. It turns out during her astronaut days she was using her middle name, Krista, and now she goes by her first name, Sharon. and she's a Syracuse law professor. The Challenger commander, Francis Richard Scobie, is now Dick Scobie, which sounds like a rather unpleasant disease, CEO of Cows in Trees Limited. Judith Resnick, the Challenger mission specialist, again hasn't even bothered changing her name. She's a professor at Yale Law. And finally, Ronald McNair, another Challenger mission specialist, claims to be his identical twin brother, Carl McNair. What are the odds? What most people don't realise is that all the characters in this story are all actors in the same club, as George Carlin put it.
Evidence that is coming from primarily NASA, the government, and the military. 3 organizations that have proven to be completely untrustworthy on numerous counts. If we were to put them on trial, they would all be guilty of being pathological liars.
Now, I do accept that you can look up into the night sky and see what we're told are satellites. I've done it myself. I've seen bright lights moving across the sky, but I have no idea what those things are. In this video, you can see several large, bright objects. However, none of them appear on any satellite tracking applications. When you look up at a jet airliner flying at 35,000 feet, you can only see it as a small dot. So how is it if something the size of a jumbo jet is rendered as a small dot at about 5 to 7 miles up, that you can see a satellite which is the size of between a car and a school bus at 100 miles away? You just wouldn't see it. There may be things that are way beyond the human mind's ability to comprehend.
I won't even go into stars here. Stars are still 100% a mystery. All we know is that they say that they are trillions of miles away. That's for you to believe or to not believe. But planets, okay, we can see them independently. They look like luminous objects in the distance. But without NASA CGI photos where shading is added, they can't be confirmed as spheres. Through my telescope, they don't appear to have life or livable terra firma. We simply don't know what they are, but they appear to just circle around us and have something to do with the mechanics of this reality. Just because something looks like a circle doesn't make something else a ball or an oblate spheroid.
It is claimed that the other planets are spheres, and so therefore Earth must also be a sphere. Firstly, Earth is a plane, not a planet, so the shape of these planets in the sky have no bearing on the shape of the Earth beneath our feet. Secondly, these planets have been known for thousands of years around the world as wandering stars, since they differ from the other fixed stars in their relative motions only. When looked at with an unprejudiced naked eye or through a telescope, the fixed and wandering stars appear as luminous disks of light, not spherical terra firma. The pictures and videos shown by NASA of spherical terra firma planets are all clearly fake computer-generated images and not photographs. The etymology of the word planet actually comes from the late Old English planet, or from Old French planet, from Latin planeta, from Greek planetes, planetae, wandering stars, or to wander of unknown origin, to spread, or notion of spread out, from Latin planum, flat surface, plane, level, plane. They just added a T to our Earth plane, and everyone bought it.
Here's a picture of Jupiter. This is from 3 separate images, okay, 3 separate periods, but they're always at the same angle. Now, if someone's in the North Pole, and then someone's in the South Pole on the bottom side of the globe, they would see Jupiter upside down. Now, if you're going to tell me this was taken with a satellite, even a satellite would move in all different directions. It wouldn't take the same angle over and over again. This one has a moon in front of it, same angle. This one doesn't. This one's a little lighter, just about the same angle, nothing. So again, I mean, you want to talk about major bullshit. This is it right here. Okay? Yeah, you might be able to see something through your telescope, but you're not seeing this. Okay? In high detail like this, you're not. Not with any amateur telescope, period. Here we go. This is Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. Again, same angle. Only difference is they colored this one. It's the same damn photo. All they did was darken this one, and then they put a little bit of a shading right around this edge where the pointer is on it. But it's the same damn thing. So they didn't change anything. They're not even trying that hard. They're just putting out photos. Here goes Saturn. Now this is supposedly an actual photo from a satellite. This is off NASA's website. Sure, it looks pretty, but it's not real. And they're telling you it's real, and you believe it because your ego won't allow you to say, look, it's all fake. Your ego won't allow you to know the truth.
Every picture we have from NASA of a planet is a artist rendering. They're not real pictures. If you take a strong telescope and look at a planet, it looks nothing like this. It looks like a self-illuminating light. It looks more like a star. They used to call planets wandering stars. Next, Saturn, I've looked at myself through high-powered telescopes, and it really looks like a light bulb. It doesn't look like it's reflecting light. The rings are lit up. There's none of these colors on there. And these are just artist renderings. And if you believe that they're real, you're just sadly mistaken. Next, we recently had Pluto, pictures of Pluto. The one kind of center bottom is the most recent one. And that was taken by a probe that was whizzing by Pluto. Pluto's spinning. There's barely any light out there. And it gets this perfect, brightly lit, crisp, clear image of Pluto and transmits it all the way back to Earth, where we can barely get cell phone signals, when you go out of town. Go to the next one. And if you look at it, again, Disney style, they show us this ridiculous picture, and Pluto is actually on Pluto. They're literally laughing at us.
Amateur balloon footage taken above the clouds has provided stunning visual proof that the sun cannot be millions of miles away. In several shots, you can see a clear hotspot reflecting on the clouds directly below the sun's spotlight-like influence. If the sun were actually millions of miles away, such a small, localized hotspot could not occur. Another proof the sun is not millions of miles away is found by tracing the angle of sun rays back to their source above the clouds. There are thousands of pictures showing how sunlight comes down through cloud cover at a variance of converging angles. The area of convergence is, of course, the sun, and is not millions of miles away, but rather relatively close to Earth, just above the clouds.
We'll talk about the vanishing point a little bit. These lines are parallel the way we see. They don't look parallel here, but if you flick to the next one, these are the corners of the hallway, and they rush to the point of convergence or the vanishing point. And that's how our eyes see. Everything rushes in from the sides, the top and the bottom, to our point of focus. And that's the vanishing point. The sky has no bumps on it. The sky is smooth, but the earth has bumps on it. It has mountains, it has trees, it has cars, people, waves. Anything that comes across the flat plane that even rises up a little bit will create a false horizon in front of that vanishing point. So if you look at the light on the ceiling and imagine that's the sun, the sun's not getting any closer to the floor, but it is going down. And if you had some bumps in the hallway or some people standing down the hallway, the sun would disappear. That light would disappear behind their heads from the bottom up, just like we observed on this plane.
Let's turn our attention to the moon. Many of us have seen the moon appear full at various times throughout the day, as in this picture. But how can that happen? If you're standing at point C, then it's the middle of the night. Full moon, no problem. And if you're standing at point A, it's early in the morning. Certainly if you stare back at the moon in the night sky, then yes, you can see a full moon. But if you're standing at point B, which is midday, that is, the sun is directly overhead, then there isn't anywhere that the moon can be that will allow you to see it as full, because the sun will be illuminating the side of the moon that is facing away from you. So the best you'll be able to see is a sliver of the moon. Think about it next time you see the full moon during the day.
At night, the craters, or the dark spots, I like to call them, are black because it's in our sky and there's black sky behind it. Next, if you look at the full moon during the day, those spots are now blue because we are seeing through whatever the moon is. And to prove that, go to the next one. We have a crescent moon, and behind the moon was a planet. And when you zoom in, you can see the planet through the moon. And this shot was proven that there was a planet in that position, and you could see it behind the moon. And there's many people that have photographed this.
So I'll cut right to the chase. Powerful Jews are operating and manipulating this reality. As of right now, it doesn't take much research to figure this out. Just to clarify, not every Jewish person is in on the conspiracy, but in the grand scheme of things, wealthy Jewish families have the control. They own the Federal Reserve, they own the World Bank, they own Hollywood and the media, they own Freemasonry, and much, much more. Freemasonry is one of the oldest secret societies in the world and was born from Judaism and has nothing but Jewish terms and ideas. Freemasons are scattered across the world to serve as instruments for the elite agenda. Several of these Freemasons work for NASA.
Ptolemy, who first put forward the heliocentric model, was acknowledged as the first Mason. Copernicus was a Jesuit priest. Sir Isaac Newton was a Freemason. All the astronauts are Freemasons. So you can see how this lie could work if all these celebrated people are telling the same story.
Nicholas Copernicus, Johannes Kepler, Galileo Galilei, and Isaac Newton, the four forefathers of the globalist heliocentric doctrine, all posed for Masonic portraits, highlighting various symbols and hand signs denoting their affiliation with the Brotherhood. Galileo poses on a Masonic checkerboard floor, Kepler with the hidden hand sign, and all four of them pose with a Masonic compass and globe while flashing the Masonic M hand sign. Sir Isaac Newton was even knighted by Queen Anne at Trinity's College Masonic Master's Lodge. An inordinate number of NASA astronauts, the current propagators of the globalist heliocentric doctrine, are or were admitted Freemasons as well. John Glenn, two-time U.S. Senator and one of NASA's first astronauts, is a known Mason. Buzz Aldrin Jr., the second man to lie about walking on the moon, is an admitted ring-wearing, hand-sign-flashing 33rd degree Mason from Montclair Lodge number 144 in New Jersey. Edgar Mitchell, another supposed moonwalker aboard Apollo 14, is an Order of Demolay Mason at Artesta Lodge number 29 in New Mexico. James Irwin of Apollo 15, the last man to lie about walking on the moon, was a Tejon Lodge number 104 member in Colorado Springs. Don Eisel on Apollo 7 was a member of the Luther B. Turner Lodge number 732 in Ohio. Gordon Cooper aboard Mercury 9 and Gemini 5 was a Master Mason in Carbondale Lodge number 82 in Colorado. Virgil Grisham on Apollo 1 and 15, Mercury 5 and Gemini 3 was a Master Mason from Mitchell Lodge number 228 in Indiana. Walter Schirra Jr. on Apollo 7, Sigma 7, Gemini 6 and Mercury 8 was a 33rd degree Mason at Canaveral Lodge number 339 in Florida. Thomas Stafford on Apollo 10 and 18, Gemini 7 and 9 was a Mason at Western Star Lodge number 138 in Oklahoma. Paul Weitz on Skylab 2 and Challenger is from Lawrence Lodge number 708 in Pennsylvania. NASA astronauts Neil Armstrong, Alan Shepard, William Pogue, Vance Brand, and Anthony England all had fathers who were Freemasons too. The amount of astronauts known to be Freemasons or from Freemasonic families is astonishing. It is likely that more astronauts and people of key importance in NASA are affiliated with the Brotherhood as well, but not so open about their membership. For there to be this many Masons, members of the world's largest and oldest secret society, involved with the promotion and propagation of this globalist heliocentric doctrine from its outset to today, should raise some serious suspicion.
I'm still surprised how often I see the globe in corporate logos, almost every piece of media I look at, including commercials, magazines, and music videos, and album covers. I mean, it's a lot. And and the rest of us describe a ball Earth as where we live because we don't know any better. When it's drilled into your head as fact before you even get to the 3rd grade, you end up with that core belief, a belief that's hard to part with. We all have a little bit of ego and we don't want to be wrong, but this flat Earth epiphany is rousing us from our sleep, and we're now noticing the massive amounts of programming.
The world has been systematically brainwashed and indoctrinated for centuries into believing the greatest lie of all time, that the Earth is a spinning globe.
Decades of programming through entertainment media, over 100 years of science fiction books and stories and television programs and films.
Really is simple, believe it or not. Why were we all taught the globe from the time we could walk? Why are we all told it's the absolute unquestionable fact of all facts? Why are we told flat Earth is stupid, ancient, and primitive? Why are we shown globes in every logo, and why are they in every classroom? Well, that's simple. Because it's not possible to live on a globe. You can't live on a sphere. I get it. They taught us that we can and do, yet they forgot something very important to the truth, and that's called proof, or evidence. Without it, the only way to teach it is by forcing it down our throats from the age of 3.
This is the case. If this flat Earth is our universe, then it elevates man and this Earth to supreme importance, where every life, human or otherwise, is significant and sacred. And when we all realize that, then the world, the universe, changes.
Why don't they care? Well, it's not that they don't care, it's that they don't know that it's true, and even if it is true, they can't see how deep this goes, so they don't understand why it's even relevant or important. The shape of the Earth doesn't seem that important until you really expound upon the deepness of this conspiracy and how far-reaching it is.
To me, it matters because if they're going to lie about something like what the Earth actually is, then there's no limit to what they will lie about.
We're a random sneeze, we're an accident, we just blew up and molecules started spinning around together, and eventually a fish crawled up onto water and turned into a monkey, and that turned into you, and here we are. That's what they're trying to tell you. Think about how that makes you feel metaphysically. Where does that place you as a speck of dust in the corner of the universe?
How Saturn became a god.
Now, a quick Wikipedia search, as always, will provide just a tabletop conversation information about this planet. Yeah, Gloria, take it away.
The planet has a bright and extensive ring system composed mainly of ice particles with a smaller amount of rocky debris and dust. At least 146 moons are known to orbit the planet, of which 63 are officially named. This does not include the hundreds of moonlets in its rings. Titan, Saturn's largest moon and the second largest in the solar system, is larger while less massive than the planet Mercury and is the only moon in the solar system to have a substantial atmosphere.
Now, don't have you believe that this is just a big ball of gas, but I'll tell you, according to the word, these are lights in the firmaments, and lights emit energy. And the people who are into worshiping Saturn and any other planets know this very well, because their rituals and their customs are purposely designed to tap into the energy and the frequencies that these planets emit. That's what NASA and Wikipedia won't tell you. And this is how they've been able to tap it in or associate it with various deities.
Saturn was a god in ancient Roman religion and a character in Roman mythology. He was described as a god of time, generation, dissolution, abundance, wealth, agriculture, periodic renewal, and liberation. Saturn's mythological reign was depicted as a golden age of abundance and peace. After the Roman conquest of Greece, he was conflated with the Greek titan Cronus. Saturn's consort was his sister Ops, with whom he fathered Jupiter, Neptune, Pluto, No, Ceres, and Vesta.
So if you watch the Marine Kingdom, you now know who Neptune's father is.
Saturn was especially celebrated during the festival of Saturnalia each December, perhaps the most famous of the Roman festivals, a time of feasting, role reversals, free speech, gift-giving, and revelry.
Think about the role reversal that Rome did. Kind of correlates with the Bible when it says the first shall become last and the last shall become first, but albeit done in a more Luciferian way. Now, some scholars will associate Saturn with Saturn's Day, which is named after him. And because of so, they'll look at that and say, oh, there must be a connection with the 7-day Sabbath, then say Yahweh. But don't be fooled. Each of these deities took up a day of the week, which was never named in the scripture. There was never a day called Monday or Moon's Day. There was never a day called Wednesday or Woden's Day. There was never a day called Thor's Day or Thursday. These deities or these beings, whatever you want to call them, sought to become rulers in heaven, and when that failed, then they sought to become rulers and kings here on earth, even going as far as to take up daughters of men to somehow procreate a royal bloodline. But even that was forbidden. The Sabbath day for us is known as the 7th day, and the only title that is given outside of the 7th day is the Shabbat. And every other day for us Bible-believing people, it's day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, ending in day 7, which just so happens to be the day that they call Saturday. But for us, we simply know it as the Sabbath. Oh, how the devil loves his duping delight. Now, another name for this deity is known as Cronus, or Kronos. He is the father of time with his sickle. He's also known as a very lethargic, slow-moving deity who was also known to be an eater of his children.
Cronus was usually depicted with a harp, scythe, or a sickle, which was the instrument he used to castrate and depose Uranus, his father. He was the leader and youngest of the first generation of Titans who overthrew his father and ruled during the mythological Golden Age, until he was overthrown by his own son Zeus and imprisoned in Tartarus.
And once again, we've spoken on this Golden Age, if you will, when these beings had their free will, seeing their kingdom on earth set up, and at that point was practically unchallenged, and this would have possibly taken place before the flood. And take note here that Cronus, or aka Saturn, is the leader of these Titans. And much how Nimrod tries to reinstate this Golden Age, leading up to the Father, our Heavenly Father, causing them to have their languages confounded, subsequently bringing them to war with one another. This is exactly what happens to these Titans.
Zeus, the youngest son of Cronus, managed to escape his father's insatiable hunger and grew up in secrecy. When he reached adulthood, Zeus embarked on a mission to free his siblings and overthrow the Titans. With the help of his brothers and sisters, including Poseidon, Hades, Hera, Demeter, and Hestia, Zeus rallied the Olympians for the ultimate battle. The Titanomachy was a clash of cosmic proportions. The Titans, with their immense strength and power, fought fiercely to maintain their dominion over the universe. On the other hand, the Olympians, armed with their newfound divine abilities and guided by Zeus's strategic brilliance, sought to claim their rightful place as the rulers of the cosmos. The battle raged on for 10 long years, with both sides unleashing unimaginable forces upon each other. Mountains crumbled, oceans boiled, and the heavens themselves trembled under the weight of their conflict. The Titans, with their vast numbers, posed a formidable challenge to the Olympians, but the younger gods, fueled by their determination and guided by their leader Zeus, proved to be an unstoppable force. In the end, it was the Olympians who emerged victorious. With Zeus's thunderbolts and the combined might of his siblings, the Titans were defeated and banished to the depths of Tartarus, the darkest abyss of the underworld. The Olympians ascended to Mount Olympus, establishing their reign as the new gods of the cosmos.
Earth had become so defiled and wicked, but if you were them telling the story, this was their golden age. And this was the story they retold to mankind after the flood. There was peace, prosperity. Well, I mean, according to them it was, But y'all, following the page that they used after the flood with the people who sought to take their knowledge to take war against him, did the same with these beings, which is famously, or rather infamously, known as the Clash of the Titans.
India is a land of ancient wonder and timeless legends. The ancient Vedic texts describe numerous wars between the gods that included the use of aircraft and atomic weapons several thousands of years before their modern-day equivalents were invented. It comes as no surprise that mainstream archaeology dismisses these accounts as mythological allegories. but the increasing number of discoveries in this region is turning academia's historical timeline on its head. Perhaps even more intriguing is the theory that these warring gods of ancient India and the Anunnaki deities of ancient Mesopotamia are actually one and the same.
When Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the modern age of nuclear weapons, was asked how he felt about the detonation of the first nuclear bomb, he corrected the questioner. "Not the first atomic bomb," he responded. "The first atomic bomb in modern times." Could evidence here at Dvaraka suggest an advanced civilization that had their hands on nuclear weapons?
When you look at the wars that are in the Mahabharata, and they talk about using these weapons with this, the capability of destroying even worlds in some cases. Some of these weapons, once they were released, it said that the enemy would be defeated. There's no question, no doubt the enemy was going to be defeated. And I really think that when you analyze Dwarka, you'll find that there will be vitrified stone, vitrified rock. Even above ground where their city remains, you can find some glass in the sand. Now, the only way to turn sand into glass is through high heat temperatures, 3,000 plus degrees.
The ancient Vedic literature tells us that during the wars that took place between Krishna at Dwarka and a rival king by the name of Salwa, there were weapons that were used that devastated not just the cities, but entire armies. And that as much as 36 years after a war that supposedly only lasted about 18 days, that there was still what we would describe as some kind of nuclear winter taking place. Not just humans were being killed en masse, but animals were just falling over dead. People seemed to be covered in something that they were trying to wash off them by leaping into streams. There talked about mutations, blinding lights that were so strong that it was like 1,000 suns. And what it strongly tells us is that the ancient Vedic cultures would appear to have had these nuclear devices that were set off and other forms of missiles that could cause incredible destruction.
We know that historically the writer is being very accurate. This is important because the rest of the story sounds like a fantasy tale. We're told that Krishna, for example, traveled in the skies in his celestial chariot, his Vimana craft, and that in fact he battled with a nearby king called Salva that also possessed one of these Vimana craft, and they engaged in a war. In fact, they're shooting projectiles at one another, projectiles and missiles that appear to light up the sky during the day. And ultimately, King Salva is raining these projectiles on Dwarka, and Krishna retaliates by sending some ground-to-air missile that ultimately destroys Salva's Vimana. So with that in mind, and given the factual basis for elements in the Mahabharata, we wonder, could it be possible that Dwarka was destroyed by one of these weapons? We're told that Dwarka was destroyed by water, that it's a sunken city, it's a lost city. But what caused that sinking? Perhaps there's room or latitude within the story to offer up the possibility that it was destroyed by one of these advanced weapons, perhaps even a nuclear weapon, as described in the Mahabharata.
One of the other things that you find in the story of the Mahabharata is the talking about Vimana, the aerial ships of the gods. And it's interesting because you find the concept of these aerial ships of the gods throughout cultures. You know, many times they're pulled by a horse, and this is how the gods move from the earth to their heavenly realm.
Researchers point out that this isn't the first evidence of the use of a nuclear blast, and that this evidence almost suggests a much larger battle that spanned to different territories.
And once again, aligns with other concepts in the Mahabharata that tells us that the gods were using some kind of advanced weaponry in their wars amongst themselves.
Yeah, we talk about the golden age of the gods, but you know what? The gods were also very dysfunctional. And they said so. I mean, just because they were a bit more developed than ordinary hunter-gatherers doesn't mean that they didn't succumb to the same foibles that we do as human beings. They fell under the same problems. There were jealousies, there were rivalries, there were positions of power. The gods were very different to us. They were physically like us, but they were not quite like us. So they were much taller, for example. They were much greater in stature. And that also frightened a lot of people. And there were many cases and many stories in the Indian texts where the gods were also driven en masse by a mass uprising of civil disobedience. So just because they were gods doesn't mean that they also didn't come under the same influence of human problems that we have today.
This rather ingenious chess move set Lucifer's kingdom back a few thousand years. But even with the subsequent overthrow of Saturn by his son Zeus, the cult still remained. He had tons of devout followers and worshippers back then, as he does to this day. And they have now realigned themselves, all of Lucifer's children, to help reestablish his one world order. And Saturn plays a heavy, super heavy part in that.
The black cube on Saturn.
Now, if you examine the actual planet of Saturn, or at least what NASA gives us, you'll see that there is a storm, so they tell us, and this storm just so happens to be shaped with 6 sides, making a 6-sided black cube. And this is the first correlation that you're going to see with this black cube, whether it's being called the Tesseract, the Allsparks cube spoken of in Transformers, or any other place in multimedia. This is the first time you're going to see it being tied and associated with this planet /star/light/god known as Saturn. Now, Saturn is known as the Death Star, or the dark planet, or the dark star, namely because it is the darker of the light. And the other side of that light is the sun. A lot of the satanic cults come from Saturn and pray to him because they know Saturn to be Satan, the Dark Lord. Whereas the Luciferians pray to the sun. The devil is two-faced. One face, he's the bright, shining one, who he used to be. And that's how he presented himself to Eve, via the serpent. And then on the other end, you have him presenting himself as he is, the Dark Lord, the Dark Star, or the Death Star. This is why a lot of the worship with Saturn deals with the color black. Black robes, black cubes, black jewelry, and so forth. Remember that all of these zodiacs tie into one another. They'll have you believe that there are 12 houses of the zodiac, but I tell you they all belong to one demonic entity. So while Saturn may be venerated and worshipped in the winter, he has a connection with the summer and spring. Remember that he is two-faced. Saturn is the 6th planet from the sun, having and composed of 7 rings. Do the math. There's the number 13 again. But never mind that number just now. I want you to take the 1 and the 3 and then combine it. What letter do you get? B. This is the common motif for a lot of Masonic lodges, which is why you see the beehive buzzing around. These bees have been busy working against the order of Yah since the days of old. The letter B is the 2nd letter in the alphabet. That's 2. 2 is composed of 1 and 1, giving us twins. Twins, again, like the World Trade Towers, which were then collapsed, and in its wake, they now have a black cube. Now, 9/11 took place on, 9/11. You add those sequence of numbers up, you have 9 plus 1 plus 1, 11. The year was 2001. You have 2, 0, 0, which are empty placeholders, and 1. You're left with 2 ones. Again, going back to the double-fisted deity, which zodiac is known to have 2 sides? the Gemini. So again, don't be fooled. Yes, Saturn is worshipped and venerated in the winter, culminating to the month of January, which is named after the god Janus, who also happens to have two faces. The young face in January, and then you get the mature face in June, 6 months later. You know what, I did some digging on the Israeli counterintelligence secret private organization known as Black Cube. I found something super interesting. You can go look at this for yourself, but I've taken the liberty of putting it on the screen for you. They have 3 cities that they are based in for operation, and each of their numbers end in 666. Coincidence? Maybe I'm reaching, or maybe not.